Hello guys and gals. Today is Sunday, September the 1st. Yeah, it's 58 degrees out right now. Just want to show you. You can see all this dead poplar on the ground here. That's from trees they've broken over before. You see how they walk and they plow these big, that's got to be about a 2.5 inch poplar. They plow it over and they break it over like that. And see how they've broken that off. And even just as broken off like that, see they've all broken that all over down in there. And it'll die and just rot there now. And that's what they've done throughout the whole bush. And you know, they clean the ground clean like you see here. Well, you can't really see because of all the stuff. And they break this stuff over. And it dies because see they rip it right out of the ground. I don't know if you can see that one right there. They rip it right out of the ground and it dries up and dies. And once it's broken over like that, it just dries up and dies and rots. And fairly fast too, this poplar. But you see how clean the ground is? They plow it over and they eat all the leaves off the brush. They seem to prefer it better than the grass out in the field. See all over there, you know, and they've taken all the leaves up as high as they can reach. And we go up this steep embankment here. You can see how steep it is from the the steers sliding down on the clay because it's been raining every second day. But what I got to do today is take the power saw and cut these ones off because they're bent over right into my roadway here. Yeah, I busted them right off. And they would just die and they'll just die and rot. And I'm gonna cut these off because they're right in my roadway where I gotta plow snow. Well, I finally got, that's the problem here in northwestern Ontario. You know, we only have one abattoir. And you have to book your animals a year in advance, or else you don't get them in. And being that even I give my meat away, by law, I'm supposed to have it federally inspected. And as you know, I have to kill quite a few of them myself because I just can't get them in and it's time they gotta go. Well, I finally got a booking for January 13th for 4 of them to go in. And then I have a booking for next November 2020 on the 26th of November. I've got 3 steers booked in and 4 pigs booked in. And because my health has been just the total beans. It's like I go finally it's getting closer to see the specialist on September the 5th for this you know, I was sick all winter really bad, and it's like this summer I just can't do anything. It's just like just start to do a little bit. Like I'm here, I'm trying to get some firewood cut in 10 minutes and I'm soaking wet from sweating and feel like I'm gonna pass out and I have to go lay down. Like I go and feed everybody and I have to go in the house and lay down for a couple hours, and then I try to come out and do something, and I complained to the doctor all last winter and nothing was showing up on my blood. And he kept saying, oh, we'll cut you back on your morphine. Maybe it's too much morphine and blah, blah, blah. I says, no, it's not. I've been taking that amount of morphine for years. And oh, it could have changed, blah, blah, blah. Well, finally it showed up in my blood a couple months ago. And I said the wrong word in the last video. I said to my doctor, I says, you know, isn't there something you can give me for this total drop in estrogen? And he means, you mean testosterone? He says, if it was estrogen, you'd be growing boobs. So I made the wrong wording in the last video. It's not estrogen, it's testosterone. And there's, you see some of the steers there. So those two will be going in January the 14th down there. And the two furthest ones way over there, the all black one and the white heifer. The steer closest to me here, he's too young. He's just the one that I got last fall. So the two over there and the two here will be going in January the 14th. And I have to kill the one male pig there yet this fall. As soon as the flies die down, it gets cooler to work to do it, and I can find some help. And there's also one female pig I'm going to kill that never did get pregnant. She's been with the boar since March. She's never got pregnant, so she's going. I'm not going to feed her all winter. She was also, I won't say the runt of the litter, but she was a lot smaller than the other two pigs I got from the people. So there might be something to that. So I'm down here today because I got to get some firewood. I don't have any firewood at all, and I'm going to attempt to try and cut a couple of these dead jack pines that are down here. I don't know how far I'll get, but at least if I can get a few blocks up, because the nights have been really cold, down into the 40s, and you know how drafty that mobile home is, and I'm going to be stuck in there another winter. But I'm going to try and get, I have a $2,800 airtight wood stove I bought years ago that I had in the other house when I was in my 20s. And it's a high efficiency unit, but it's been in my parents' basement since I moved out of Lappy back in what year was that? 1987, 1980, no, what the heck was it? When was that, the time when I kicked that girl out that lived with me that was an alcoholic, and she used to beat the crap out of me, and I kicked her out, and she went to the police and accused me of sexually assaulting her. And the way our laws are, unless you have a video recording or a witness, it's her word stands. And so I spent 2 years in court over that, and the judge said you plead guilty to it, you walk away. He says we smell a rat in this case, but the system is the way it is, and it's the way it is. And my lawyer told me that, and the second lawyer I went to go see, because I didn't believe the first lawyer. And I had the best lawyer in Thunder Bay, Lee Begg. He's dead now, and he was the best criminal lawyer around. And he told me that he didn't have a defense for me, and it was her word, and that was it. And if I didn't plead guilty to it, I'd end up doing 2 years less a day. And I refused. I refused, and I refused, and I refused. And then when I went to court to see about going to trial, the judge outright said to me, Mr. Romppai, if you go to trial, you know that the women's groups will get in there and you'll be dead in the water. You plead guilty today, you walk away, and no time served, no probation, no nothing, because we do smell a rat. And because this Linda Miller, she falsely accused me, all because she was pissed off and mad that I kicked her out, because she was a drunk. And she had beat the hell out of me. I was sure I was only out of the hospital from having my back operation done, and I put an ad in the paper for a roommate, and then we turned into more than a roommate after a while, and after about 6 months, and after a year and a half, she started beating the hell out of me. So it was only, not even a year and a half, I think it was only like 14 months after my back operation, and I'd be sleeping, and she would come home drunk, and she just literally started pounding on me, and I kicked her out. And then she went and she admitted herself in the Thunder Bay Detox Center, and I got a phone call saying that she was there and that she wanted me to come down there and see her. So I went down there to see her and see what the hell was going on and stuff. And she begged me, oh, you know, trust me, I'm going to go in the detox here, and I'm going to go in the Smith Clinic and the AA program, blah, blah, blah. And one thing led to another. And she was living with her brother all that summer. And then first part of August, I told her, I says, your next day off work was, I don't know, the 26th of August or something like that. And I says, come and get your stuff out of here that day, I says, and I want you out. And she come and she sat on my lap, and she's all lovey-dovey, and oh, please, please, no, no. And I stuck to my guns. I says, no, I want you out. I don't trust you because you're not doing your AA program. You're missing half your meetings. And I want you out. So she came on the 26th to get her stuff, and she fumbled around with her quarter-ton truck, and I think she put a mattress in there and a bed frame and a couple other things, and she was talking to the cats and rubbing, because their cat was rubbing against her legs and stuff, and she says, oh, I wish somebody else was that affectionate to me, and blah, blah, blah. And I just ignored her. And she left there, and she went to the cops. I went to town, went to go see a friend from the aftercare group from the, they recommended I went into this Al-Anon program, live in for six weeks after she did her thing. So I went in that to try and benefit it and stuff like that, give her the benefit of the doubt and stuff. And she thought I was in there to learn how to look after her. But while I was in there, she learned that it was the other way around, that how you learn to put them aside and not let them affect you. And to stay to your guns and stuff like that. And when she came to pick me up, to take me home, she was still living at her brother's. She asked me in the elevator, well, where do we stand? And I just responded with saying, wherever you put yourself. So anyway, I had gone in the aftercare program. So that day when she came to get her stuff, I said, look, get your stuff and get going. And she fumbled around for hours, and she only got like a few things in the back of her truck. And she was just dragging her butt and sitting down, and I could tell she was just doing it, trying to get me to do something and stuff like that. And I just told her, take your stuff. You can always come back later once you prove to me that you're sticking to it and this and that. And next thing you know, she started attacking me and coming on to me and basically raped me. And then she goes to the cops and says that I sexually assaulted her. And so I ended up with a criminal record for it. And after 5 years, I went and applied for a pardon, got rid of it. And she turned around and she did the same thing to this guy that she married, and she went and she moved right next door to me in Lappy with him. And then they moved to Nebing, and he ran for, and they got married while they were in Nebing, and he ran for some kind of council or something in Nebing. And just before the election, she turned around and called the cops and accused him of the same thing. And she was growing marijuana in the basement, and she told the cops that it was his marijuana. And he ended up contacting me because his lawyer wanted a sworn affidavit from me what had happened to me, because they had a kid together, and they'd taken all his guns and everything else, plus she had stolen my 30-06 that I had bought for her to use, because she didn't have an FAC, and back at those days you only needed an FAC to buy a gun, and you didn't have to have an FAC to have the gun, but you had to have an FAC to buy a gun. Not like now that you have to have a possession and acquisition license to buy and have a gun. But I just went back. You can't get that. Back in the day when they passed that law, you could get a possession and acquisition or just a possession license. And I had never planned on buying any more guns, so I just got the possession only. And she stole that gun from me. And was under my FAC number, and I didn't have the serial number written down, and I reported to the police and stuff, and they asked me for the serial number. I said, I don't know what the serial number is. I says, it's on my FAC. Well, we don't keep records of that. That's just, the store had to keep records for a year after guns were bought. I said, what? That's how good it was, you know, back then on the FACs. And when he came to see me to give his lawyer, they come right out, him and his lawyer came right out to the house here. My ex-wife was still with me at the time. And I told his lawyer and him my whole story, what had went on. And Linda Miller did this. And she was a cook at the main hospital in Thunder Bay what the heck was, not St. Joe's, but McKellar Hospital. She was a cookie over there. And everybody in the kitchen was scared of her, and I never knew why until all this other stuff happened, but they were terrified of her. Well, I found out after, because I went and talked to them and told them what had happened and stuff. And so anyway, they came out here, the lawyer and stuff, and I did the affidavit, and he promised me that when he got the guns back, he'd get that gun back to me. But I haven't seen or heard from him since, so I don't know whatever happened to him. I haven't heard from him. I have the newspaper article someplace. Maybe one day I will dig it out of my filing cabinet there and take a picture of it and post it on another video just to show you guys. My story never made the newspapers at all. Not at all. But his did, because he was running for something to do with the politics and elections and stuff like that for the township of Nebing. I don't know if it was mayor of Nebing or what he was. I think it was mayor of Nebing he was running for. And I don't remember his name. But Linda Miller did the same thing to her, or to him. And how I met her is I put an ad in the paper looking for a roommate, because the girl, Janet Blake, I was living with, while I was down in Toronto getting my back operation, she took off with Wayne Gorman, a mechanic I worked with in the bush, because he was coming over and helping me out after I broke my back and stuff. And I was in a wheelchair waiting for surgery 10 months after I broke my back, and he would come there and, you know, help me out to get and do stuff and stuff like that. And a couple of nights I remember waking up and being on Percocets, and the two of them were sitting on the couch watching a video. And as soon as the bedroom was right off the living room, so as soon as Janet would see me moving around or sit up and light a smoke, right away she'd come in and she'd shove 2 or 3 more Percocets at me. And I'd pass out again, you know, an hour later or whatever. And I woke up one morning and the two of them are cuddled up on the couch, 5 o'clock in the morning, sleeping. And then I didn't really say nothing, because it's like, what are you going to do? And I couldn't get around much on my own, being in a wheelchair and stuff anyway, so I didn't really do much. I got mad about it later on after he left, but, you know, what does that matter? And while I was down in Toronto, her and her son, she packed up and she left the house to freeze up. She left her son there because her son didn't want to go, because he had a girlfriend down the road. And he was, I think, 14 at the time. And she moved in with him in town, Janet Blake moved in with him in town and left the boy home. And my parents brought me home from the airport, and they put the bed up on 4 paint cans so it's higher off the ground so I could get down onto it to lay down. I stayed at my parents' place because they didn't want me staying out in the country. And I asked my dad to go out there and check on the house, and the whole place was snowed in 6 feet deep. And all the chickens were dead in the barn. And before I left, I had a friend of mine go and get 20 bags of laying mash and put in the barn, and all 20 bags were still in there when my dad went and looked. And I had a cow in the back barn, That barn was snowed in halfway up the door, and he dug it out, and the cow was in there down because it hadn't had hay or water for how long, and she was pregnant. And so he got my uncle to go out there and plow the driveway open, and we trailered my dad had somebody trailer the cow over to my aunt's place. Well, long story short, the cow died after giving birth to the calf. It pushed her whole uterus out, and a friend of mine and his dad, they pushed the uterus back in and they pinned her closed, and they called the vet, and before the vet got there, she ripped the pins out, ripped herself open. The vet came, pushed everything back in, and gave her some injections to stop the contractions. She pushed everything out again, ripped everything out again. So then he took an old inner tube and he tied off the uterus and stuff, and tied it off, and he cut off the uterus and shoved the inner tube back inside of her and sent her out to pasture, and said that didn't know if she'd make it or not. And the next morning she was dead, but the calf lived, and I gave the calf to my aunt to do what she wanted, because it was a bull calf. So that was a story on that Linda Miller and Janet Blake there. Left the whole house to freeze. It was a rental house, but the landlord did sue her for damages. My dad went out there and replumbed the whole house. It was an old farmhouse, and then just gave the landlord the bill, and the landlord paid for it, and he sued her for all the damages, because the house rental was in both our names. So anyway, guys, that's a little story time for today. We'll get into my marriage one here later, and some other stories. But that's going back, that happened, and I broke my back in 1988, January of 1988, and that Janet thing happened in December of 1989. I flew down. I was only down in Toronto for three days or 4 days, I can't remember. But anyway, I got home Christmas Eve. I don't remember the flight home because they drugged me up so bad before they put me on Air Canada to fly home. Okay, take care. Please read the description below. If you can help at all, be muchly greatly appreciated. Thank you.